So thank you so much for waiting and being patient with us. We're glad that we have a group of you back with us for our second virtual session of the Military Spousal Employment Network virtual career networking fair. As you know, at 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, we will have recruiters from the network employers ready to chat with military and veteran spouses, accept your resumes, just general networking and applying for jobs. So don't miss that. Remember, you don't have to stay for the whole thing. You can pop in and out for what you're available to do. But that is later. Right now, we have a fantastic session in store for you. My name's Katie Ochin. I work for Military Family Services. I'm in the room here with Vanessa Walsh and Teresa Roy, who are also on our team here at Military Family Services. And we're on, we have a panel today with three fantastic spouses. So we have Renee Back, Lana Knoll, and Megan Beauchamp. So they're all here today to chat about how they overcame some specific military spouse challenges. And I'm just going to go through so you can see their beautiful faces. So as you can see, right across the country so we have Nova Scotia, Manitoba, and New Brunswick. Very unique military spouses in a sense that they all have different experiences. And so we're excited to get to know them a little bit more and to learn from some of their best practices and how they navigated their career thus far. How this is going to go today is we have a few questions that we're going to go through and ask the panelists to start off with. And then if you do have questions of your own that you'd like to either specifically address to a panelist or to the panel as a whole, we encourage you to type them in the chat. When you go to type them in the chat, please try to indicate, send your questions to all panelists and attendees. And then we will go to your questions as it fits in with the flow of the discussion. At the end of the session, we'll try to answer more questions as well. And so hopefully we can get all questions and comments answered by the end of the session. So we are going to get going here. In our session, our panelists are standing by and ready. So I'm going to start off with Rinny. So Rinny, we know that you are a registered nurse. You're currently based in Nova Scotia, but we'd love to hear a little bit about your career journey as a military spouse. So would you be able to just provide a brief overview of your journey thus far?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Rini. I might sound really congested because I got a cold and I've got 3 kids. So hopefully just to bear with me. I have been, I am a registered nurse and I've been a military spouse about over 11 years. I grew up in Toronto. I did my nursing degree, Bachelor of Science in Nursing in Toronto. And so my license started from Ontario, and that's where I actually got married with my husband. So he started having the post on the military base in Trenton, and then we ended up moving to Winnipeg, Manitoba. And then we moved, we were lucky enough to have an outcan posting. So we moved outside of the country to Colorado Springs, Colorado in the United States. And then now we are back in Canada. We are moved to beautiful east side of the east coast side of the Canada, which is Nova Scotia. And that's where I am currently residing in Greenwood, Nova Scotia. And so it's been quite a journey as in terms of my career though, because I mean, as being on the registered nurses, if you want to work as an RN, there is a quite different rules and standard in depending on which provinces you're located in. And the process to get re-endorse your license or reinstate your license or get your license to practice in certain provinces like really differ. So there's a lot of paperwork you have to go through, and there's many different rules, and you had to meet certain criteria for you to be able to practice in the certain provinces. So I've been through a couple of the provinces for that. When I actually moved to outside of the Colorado, as a Canadian RN, you cannot automatically practice as an RN in Colorado. You actually have to go through credential services. So it's kind of similar to what you had to go through when you wanted to endorse your license in certain provinces, if you're from different province. But it's more like intense. You had to request all the paperwork from the school that you attended, and also all the paperwork from your workplaces and your also nursing authority with the current licenses. So which will take about a year. And after that, then you have to actually write the licensure exam in the States. What I heard is though, since I got my license, that has been a long time ago, I heard that they are actually starting to write the exact same, the licensure exam, same as the US and so as Canada, which is called the NCLEX. So if you already wrote the NCLEX, then you were exempted actually from the writing an exam, so you don't have to rewrite an exam. However, when I wrote it, that was not the NCLEX. That's what it was called, the CRNE. So so that's a different test, so which shouldn't be recognized in the state. So I ought to be required to rewrite their own licensure exam in order for me to be able to practice. When I just moved to Colorado, however, I was pregnant with my second child, and I ended up having a third child in while I was living in the States as well. So I decided that, okay, I'm not gonna go through this whole, crazy process, because it was time consuming, it costs a lot of money. And at that time, when I called the nursing board, they were not really familiar with the whole process with the Canadian nurses. So it was really like there's a lot of confusion over there, because they might request one thing and they might request another thing, and then they request different things. So I determined that, okay, this is probably not gonna work. So I decided not to practice as an RN while I was down in the States. And since I moved to Nova Scotia, I was starting this whole process to get a license back and be able to start working as an RN in Nova Scotia. But current the legislations and all the standards, basically they are looking at the from present to past 3 to 4 years, depending on the province. They have a different rules, but they're looking at certain working hours. So even if you had experience as an RN for over 20 years, 15 years, if you don't have a current experiences and meet the certain hours, then they're not gonna just to give you a license right away. So I had to go through re-entry program to be able to practice the as a registered nurse in Nova Scotia or even any other provinces, basically. So that's what I've been quite a journey. So I went through about a year-long re-entry program, and I was able to successfully accomplish and complete the program. And then now I am a registered nurse, and I'm practicing, and I'm working in the acute medicine unit in the regional hospital in Nova Scotia.
Brittany, that is dedication to your career and all those ups and downs. And I think what struck me when I originally chatted with Rennie, and she's been supporting us in helping understand some of these licensing issues that military spouses are facing, is that you did not give up, and you are currently practicing despite everything, despite 3 children, despite so many relocations and challenges and having to relicense. So kudos to you. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that licensing process.
Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, and we see a lot of people commenting on your journey, Rennie, so you should be really, really happy. So Lena, from you, can you tell us about, so as an entrepreneur and maybe even before you became an entrepreneur, what has your career journey been like as a military spouse?
Sure. So I've been a military spouse for 20 years. That involved 5 relocations. I grew up in Saskatchewan, and at 18, I moved out to New Brunswick to be with my military boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, where I went to college and graduated with a 3-year diploma in creative graphic design. So I started out as a graphic designer working at a poker chip factory, making $8 an hour. Then we relocated to Alberta. I worked as a graphic designer at the newspaper. I also worked at a sign company, and then I eventually became a freelance graphic designer on my own, which didn't work well for me at the time because it wasn't busy enough for me. Then we relocated back to New Brunswick, where I became an art director for the magazine. And we were only there for 11 months. And then we relocated to Ontario, where I had 3 kids. And in a short span of time, we were only there for about 5 years. And that's when I realized the value in photography. And I immersed myself in workshops and working as a second photographer with other photographers and practicing photography with friends. And that's where I developed my love of photography and the first part of my business. And my last relocation is to Manitoba, where I started my own business as a photographer.
And Lana was actually our professional photographer at 2 recent events at the Winnipeg MFRC and the Shiloh MFRC. So maybe some of you got your headshot taken by Lana. I wish I was there to get mine because my LinkedIn photo needs to be updated. So maybe we'll have to get you to Ottawa.
Yeah, sure. That would be fun. Absolutely.
So we're really keen to learn more about how the decision to go to become an entrepreneur occurred and some of your challenges and successes as an entrepreneur afterwards. But we're going to hop over to Megan, who is in New Brunswick, and my home province. So Megan, what about yourself? So tell us, we originally had met Megan when she was back in Kingston, and you guys might have seen her on a video, I think that was produced by the Kingston MFRC. Megan was talking about her experience as a military spouse in her career. So Megan, tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Okay. I started, I guess, I'm from New Brunswick, born and raised here. And so I started my career with the credit union in particular at a really young age through a work program in high school. And then from there, I was hired on and continued to work with the credit union throughout university, thinking that I wanted to be a teacher. That was the big plan. So I added some retail and some tutoring into the mix. And then I realized partway through my university degree that I maybe didn't want to be a teacher. Everyone in my family is teachers, and maybe I hadn't explored kind of what is out there. I really loved my job within the financial services industry. So I switched some majors and minors around and continued to work towards different goals in that career. So after I finished my first degree, I did a few random business administration courses through the local university, continued on to obtain my insurance advisor certification. But from there, I quickly realized that it wasn't necessarily the financial services industry that I loved as much as the credit union or not-for-profit world. So I met my husband soon after our engagement. I started working at the credit union here in Oromocto, New Brunswick. And I've now been a military spouse or been with him for 8.5 years-ish. And throughout these years, I've kind of undergone some major career changes. So 2 pregnancies, one of which was smack dab in the middle of our posting to Kingston, Ontario. And I quickly realized it was my first time being outside of New Brunswick, that as much as I loved the credit union, it was kind of, it was going to be difficult to progress and continue on my career because they're all disconnected. And same with the not-for-profit systems. You need to essentially start from the bottom and work your way up every time. So with a transient military lifestyle, that's a lot of restarting. So it took some soul searching. I started to have some conversations with my husband and some of my friends about what I should do next. I was definitely one of those spouses that explored or kind of posted out on Facebook to say, what kind of careers have other military spouses been successful in? And I just started to really look. But from there, it was actually brought to my attention from my friends and my husband that there was a few key things that I loved about working in the not-for-profit, in the career or in the credit union system that kind of kept resonating and kept coming up with me. So they said, one of the major things, you want to help other people be happy. You want to help people be less stressed. You want to help people be content with their lives. So I grabbed onto that, obtained my coaching certification to explore to see if that was really something that I enjoyed doing. And then I started looking for ways to help people. So fortunately, a position in Kingston at the MFRC, which I was volunteering at as a way to kind of get that professional helping people satisfaction, it came up and I successfully obtained employment there, only for my husband to get a posting message 3 short months into my new amazing career. So I was super discouraged, but I knew what I wanted, so I went for it, and fortunately the stars aligned, and I obtained employment here in New Brunswick, also at an MFRC in a different field or in a different program area, but definitely exactly where I was supposed to be. So that's kind of the beginning and the end of it right now.
So much, Megan. And those, it's interesting how you did the process about asking people around you, trying to seek out what those transferable skills were that you had, and also what your interests were, and changing into a new career. Because I think you're right. A lot of military spouses, it's unfortunate that sometimes you do have to maneuver your career because of the military family lifestyle, or we all maneuver our careers at times, but it's excellent that you're able to lean on those around you to kind of help you make that decision and to see what you're interested in and whatnot.
Definitely.
To end up in the nonprofit world, which is great. And we're glad you're there. I'm sure the Gagetown MFRC is glad you're there too. So fantastic.
I don't know if my video popped up for everyone to see, but my office is in full blown Christmas programming mode. And I was like, get this off, because, my office looks a lot more chaotic than it should, I think.
Oh, that's fine. That's just the sign of a busy person. So we're going to go over to our next question. I'm just trying to navigate my screen here. Sorry. And so you guys all kind of, you leaned on that you had some career challenges, or maybe you didn't focus on them too much. And we don't necessarily want to focus on the career challenge itself. We want to know what they are. So what was your largest career challenge as a military spouse? And how did you overcome or manage that challenge, knowing that we don't always overcome the challenges? Sometimes we have to manage them. But how did that work? I'm actually going to start off with you, Lena.
Sure. Well, I can definitely say that moving was my biggest challenge, and always is, and probably always will be. So reestablishing the network. I don't know anybody, and you're going through a rough time every time you move. It's really hard. So how did I overcome that? I guess getting myself out into the community, meeting people, networking. I love to do trade shows. I'm very much an in-person type of person, so meeting people face to face, and just being open to learning new skills. I think that's always, I enjoy doing that. So taking the time where I might not have a job right away, and using that as an opportunity to learn maybe something new and to expand on what I already have.
What type of, courses, or I know you mentioned a few things, but what type of things did you do to kind of gain that experience and those skills in those downtimes?
Right. So I've done a lot of online workshops. So in my realm, it's the creativity. So there's Creative Live is a good one, where it's got a lot more of the business side, which my art school was more creativity based. So definitely looked at those workshops. I've also done a lot of workshops through the MFRC. So there was the HERCS online training that I did through Trenton, which was great. The workshop was, or the workbook was really helpful, that one. And then the other one that I did was the Telfer entrepreneurship workshop through the MFRC, which was so good. I feel like because I'm a creative, I'm definitely more interested in the art side of things and maybe not so much the numbers side of things. So that one was a really good one. So if you're good at numbers, that one will help you kind of boost your creative juices and come up with all sorts of possibilities. But then it also shows you how to do a cash flow statement. So that was awesome. I really loved that one. And those are just kind of the top ones that come to mind, even though I'm always reading tons of books and everything in between.
So those are two programs that we do offer. So HERCS, like you mentioned, phenomenal. MFS actually contracts the Trenton MFRC to put it on across the country. So any military spouse or community member can access the HERCS training. So we just popped the link in there. I think the next session is actually in January, and the deadline to apply is December 31st. So thanks for that plug. The Telfer session actually only goes to a few MFRCs every year. It is if we get the same type of feedback, Lena, about just the you know, how phenomenal the workshop actually is. So we have professors that travel from the University of Ottawa to the MFRCs. And I didn't put the link up there just because we do not have our sessions scheduled for 2018. So keep in tune on our Facebook page and on CAF Connections for more information if you are an entrepreneur out there and are looking to attend a Telfer session. So excellent. That's great. Ongoing learning is fantastic, I think, for any career professional, but especially when you're in positions of, you know, low times where you aren't employed, or like you said, just after a transition. So that's great. What about you, Rini? So I think you alluded to some of the challenges that you faced, but how did you not let those challenges overcome you? Because clearly you have persevered because you're working currently and you're as a registered nurse, which is phenomenal. So what was your largest challenge, and how did you not let it take you down?
So among all those challenges I had, you know, I cannot even count how many challenges I've had, I guess. But the largest career challenge, of course, I can say out loud is that you know, once coming back from the outcome posting, trying to reinstate my nursing license, and then trying to navigate through to how to be able to accomplish that was the biggest challenge for me. And at the same time, because my husband's, he's currently a search and rescue pilot. So as soon as we moved here, like he had to be gone away for the course to Trenton, Ontario for over 5 months. So imagine I just literally moved here without anyone knowing, like I mean, without knowing anybody, and 3 kids. I left alone with the 3 kids. And I've got literally just left with a tiny little shovel. I had no idea there's going to be a snowstorm over here. So I didn't own any kind of snow blower with myself. And then at the same time, I was like trying to get it through to how I would be able to reset my license. So basically, the program itself is what they call the hybrid program. Well, initially, actually, they were giving me 2 different options. They said I could either do the competency, the assessment, which is basically over, I think, 2 days or 3 days. They're gonna basically test you. I mean, have you come to the center, and then test you over the multiple skills that how you gonna be like. I mean, they basically measure if you're competent enough to be working on the ward as an RN. But the problem is if I go through the competent assessment, and then if they require me to take 1 or 2 or a few courses out of the program in order for me to be able to reinstate my license. Basically, there's like a long wait listed because they don't obviously have enough manpower. So even for me to be able to write an assessment, I had to wait a couple months to even write the competency assessment. And even then, once I write the assessment, I had to wait about 1 or 2 months to get my results back. And then they would be able to tell me if I'm required to 1 or 2 courses, or it might be none, or it might be the whole program, which would take about a year. But again, because of they don't have enough manpower, the program offers only twice a year. And basically, you know, when you are required to take 1 or 2 courses, you know, the program might not be available right away for you. So ultimately, it might take up to 2 years to accomplish. So I did ask, what if, as a military spouse, you know, you get to move anytime, anywhere, and nothing's guaranteed. So what if I get to move in between the program? And they said it's not a transferable because, like I said, each province has a different regulation. So you basically have to go through the whole process again with that particular the province. And if they ask you to do the reentry program, then you should do with them. But basically, whatever I did so far, it's going to be avoided. So I said, okay. So what if I just, without doing the competency assessment, if I just directly get into the reentry program, which would take about a year, can I just start it right away? And they said yes. And if I study right away, because there is a space available for me at that time, that which means I would be finished the program within a year. So I was given 2 choices, but again, being a military spouse, you know, I had to, like, timing is very important. And I had to make sure that I would be able to accomplish before I get to even move somewhere. So I decided to go directly getting into the reentry program, which is basically redoing all the, you know, necessary courses they offer through the reentry program. So, which I did. You know, again, husband's been gone and, you know, trying to get through the program. And again, the program itself is a 70%, what they call the hybrid program. So 70% is done by online. So they have an online module posted and they kind of give you guidelines, but you kind of do the self-study. So self-schedule yourself. And then 30% what they call the practical component. So basically, block of about a week or so, every 2 months, we have to actually go to the Halifax, which is about an hour and a half the driving distance from here. So we had to spend about a week, 8 to 4 classes, Monday to Thursday, pretty much. And then by the end of the week, they actually gonna do a practical test. Just so that they're testing you to see if you are, you know, if you meet the requirement and if your skills is good enough to pass. So you have to actually physically have to be able to drive up to Halifax. And then you would have to stay, like get the accommodation because it's 8 to 4 literally classes all day long. And even after the class, you have to kind of practice on your own to prepare your exam. So there's no way that you would be able to come home and, you know, commuting all the time. So then I would need someone to watch over my kids. And so that has been quite a challenge for me to kind of navigate through all those, you know, challenges through the childcare to the program itself, to navigate even myself to how am I going to be able to get this done. So basically how I was able to overcome and manage this challenge was that I used a huge part of the MFRC support. So not many people kind of understood, even myself, until like I was told, is that if someone's be gone for over 24 hours, that's what they call they consider that person as a deployment. So which means you are entitled to get a respite care or emergency child services. So in case of any emergency happens, so I use the respite care and services, and then those emergency child services in case I get sick or someone gets sick and I have no one else to look after my kids. I use those services. And also for my exam, I would have technically had to write in the center, which is located in Halifax again. But they said if I can find my own proctor for the exam, then they would allow me to write in anywhere with a proctor. And proctor service is offered by actually the GMFRC, the education and employment services, which I used it a lot. And I'm very, very grateful that I have such a proctor services be able to do so. And also, by the time I finish my program, then I also contacted them to kind of go over the resume and cover letter clinic just to be sure that, you know, kind of nice. And, you know, because my biggest fear is that I had to fill it out my gaps because I had a couple of the years of gaps when I applied for the job. You know, I had to explain why do I have such a gap in between. So I did explain, you know, as being a military, we kind of had moved and I had a child and in between have raised a family. So, you know, I just want to make sure that it sounds pretty professional, yet I was kind of explaining a little bit in a better sense to be able to more attract the employer to hire me. So I use a great support from MFRC. They have been really great. And also I've been using a lot of, you know, friends and support and family, of course. And I use a lot of social networking platform just to kind of, you know, just to kind of let out my frustrations. And, you know, sometimes I wanted to scream, pull all my hair out, and I would just let it out and all the friends and say like, just kind of cheer me up and try to give me some encouragement, you know, over the Facebook. So that has been great, helpful for me.
Yeah. Great that you reached out to your MFRC. We know that a lot of MFRCs have different services available, but Diana, I think who you're probably working with at the Greenwood MFRC, yes, she's definitely a great support, and so are all the other services offered at the MFRC, but also connecting with your community. It seems like that was a huge part of how you got through it.
Right.
Is not isolating yourself, which can be super hard as a military spouse if you're an introvert, what we do here. But even if you can connect with a few other spouses to get that support that you need, because it is hard, it is isolating. Again, I'm not a military spouse myself, but I'm speaking from just what we've heard from a lot of military spouses across the country. So, and the
Right.
fact that you didn't give up. We do hear a lot of spouses, they get so challenged with this licensing and transferring the professional license, rightfully so, because of the money, because of the time it takes, because the time out of work, that they kind of switch careers. But the fact that you've stuck with nursing is phenomenal. We know there's a few other nurses on the panel. We've put up a link in the chat. We're working with Employment and Social Development Canada right now to try to get some best practices for spouses. We're also trying to make the process slightly easier and less time consuming. We don't know when that will happen, to be completely honest, but we do have some resources up there. So we put the link in, professional licensing must-knows. So take a look at that. And feel free to go around there if you are being faced with professional licensing challenges. So Megan, for yourself, you had a complete career change, ish, I guess, using transferable skills. So what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced in the last 8 years, and how did you overcome it?
I would say, I mean, aside from a very common one that we hear from military spouses and the other panelists today, childcare and things like that, and the spouse being away often, those sorts of things. The largest career challenge for me, other than those things, was figuring out a way to balance what I wanted to do with what was available to me wherever I was. So a way that I was able to kind of overcome that was that I started volunteering. And I started volunteering because it was my first time living outside of my comfort zone of New Brunswick, away from my friends and my family. And I knew that I needed to start meeting people. I didn't learn fast enough. So I spent a few months pretty miserable, but then I started volunteering to meet people and to satisfy that professional need that I had. I did find it frustrating still to not be paid while our family really needed that second paycheck, which is also something I hear a lot from fellow military spouses. So I did wind up working at another place, which I also ended up really enjoying. But while I volunteered, and then volunteering for me not only was a great way to make sure that I was still doing something that kind of fueled me and got me out and meeting people and made me personally much more happy, but it also turned out to be an excellent networking opportunity that ended up opening the door to my next career. So I guess the biggest challenge was just kind of what's available and being patient enough to wait for something to kind of come up and do something that might not be as kind of satisfactory as you kind of are hoping for, but volunteering definitely was the way to overcome that. Networking, volunteering, those sorts of things.
Yeah, and it can lead to, it doesn't always, but it can lead to job opportunities too, right?
Absolutely. Or you can volunteer with a fellow volunteer who is in a career field or works for a company that you may never have even thought of. And, like you never know who you're going to meet and you never know what you're going to find out about yourself. I found when I volunteered, it was a big eye opener for me.
Excellent. So next question. And I'm just going to stick with you, Megan, here. And feel free, for everyone listening, feel free to type your questions in the chat. Try to type them into all panelists and attendees. But for you, Megan, what has been your largest career success as a military spouse? And I know this is hard because we don't always like talking about our career successes. But what has been your largest career success? And that is defined by you in terms of success, because we all define success differently. And what helped you achieve that success?
I would say for me, honestly, probably the largest success is ending up in a career, in a position within a corporation or organization that kind of aligns really closely with my personal values. So for me, it's kind of figuring out, I figured out how to get creative. I figured out how to kind of get involved with what I wanted to be involved with and what kind of made me feel good. And that, I mean, everyone knows how much time we spend at work. The average full-time position is between 37 and 40 hours a week. And I couldn't bear the thought of spending time away from my family and away from activities and people that I really enjoyed and loved, to do something that I really didn't enjoy. And so it was just my greatest career success for sure was figuring out a way to kind of get involved and fill that void for myself and make it really enjoyable to go to work. And eventually, it took a little bit of time for sure. But I was kind of able to recognize those things about myself. And I also had some kind of flops, so to speak. I've also worked in places that I did not enjoy at all. But I've come to realize now, especially in this employment journey as a military spouse, that those lessons are equally important. So just kind of recognizing those lessons is a huge success, I think.
Sure. And like the perseverance is when I'm listening to all of you, and again, I'm not a military spouse and I've had the luxury of choosing where I want it to move to. Just the fact that you're all here and able to discuss kind of these challenges, and you're still going in your career and you haven't given up, that's a success too. So like you said, taking encouragement from that as well as a military spouse is great. So thanks, Megan. And Lena, for you as an entrepreneur, or even before as an entrepreneur, what's been your largest success and how did you get there?
Yeah, similar to Megan, I think that you have to define success differently with each move and each time in your life. So it was being able to find the perfect career fit for me in each time of my life, that fit my lifestyle at that time. So for when we went to New Brunswick, I was an art director for the magazine. That was actually my dream job when I was going to college, and I actually fulfilled it. And I wouldn't have fulfilled it if I didn't move to New Brunswick. So yay for relocation. And that was amazing for me at that time. I didn't have kids. I wanted to be super busy. I wanted to make good money, and those things were really important to me. I was able to work remotely from home on Fridays. It was amazing. And then we moved to Ontario, and we knew we were only going to be there for a chunk of time. And then moving here, and I can have my own business, and I can be raising my children, and I can work around my husband's schedule, and everything fits for me right here perfectly. And so I think that, I guess that's just all I can talk about is that it's not just one job. It's not specifically one thing that I've achieved. I think it's an ongoing thing that I strive for, that I've successfully been able to fit my career with the lifestyle that I want at the time.
The flexibility that you guys are all demonstrating is phenomenal too. Just that you're that flexibility, like I think you're kind of getting towards as being the fact that you had that flexibility is a success, correct? If I'm not mistaken, like that you were flexible, you were able to adapt in all those situations. Is that what you mean by kind of your largest achievement? No.
Well, definitely. I think that flexibility was a part of achieving the success for sure. I'm not sure that the flexibility is the success, but just being flexible and knowing what it is that I need at the time, right. And yeah.
Excellent. What about you, Rennie? Your largest success?
Basically, I would say so far my largest career success would be obviously completing the re-entry program and be able to secure the job. And thing that I can definitely tell you is that keep all the references that you had from previous workplace, no matter where you have been working from, because even if I had such a gap in long years, I remember my current manager at the unit that I'm working right now, she requested all the references from old places. So I had to get a contact number. And funny enough, because it's been like a couple of places I used to work with, and it has been so long ago. So the couple of managers that I used to work for, they either retire or they moved to the different units. So I kind of lost the contact in between. So I had to kind of navigate through to find the manager where I could kind of get in touch with still, to be able to kind of give a good reference to my current manager or current your potential the workplace where you wanted to work with. And so definitely that keep all the references, even the coworkers, they could be such a good references for you, and that really helped me a lot to be able to secure the job in a way. And also be persistent, and positive attitude is very important. And trust me, like there's many times where I kind of feel like I just want to let it go and just don't want to do it because at this moment of my life. I mean, I didn't sign up for this. You know, I felt like so much that why do I have to repeat the whole program again? And you know, mind you, to find a job even, because everybody think that it's so easy to as an RN to find a job, but which is not really true. I mean, no matter where you are, like, you know, just be try to apply for the job as an external applicant is extremely hard. So even the way that I was able to find a job right now is that I literally just walk into the manager, and then I said, you know, I had such an experience in, you know, acute medicine unit before in previous places, and you know, I really would love to work in here. And so the manager personally was asking me to bring the resume over to her, which I did. So so all those you know, just be persistent and then know what you want to do and kind of try to do a little bit of research, and then just, you know, just go for it. I think that's really important. And just, you know, because I mean, if I feel like it's never gonna end, and I had a lot of financial issue you know, over over a couple of years, I should say, especially when I was starting doing a reentry program. It's not free, obviously, so I had to pay for it. And at the same time, my youngest was only actually less than 3 years old at that time, so I ended up sending him in a part-time daycare because you know, again, my husband's always gone all the time, so there's no way to have no way for me to have him all the time and try to study at the same time. So, you know, imagine you're still relying on single income and you had to pay for the tuitions for the program, and then also the daycare. And then even once I actually, right before I find a job, I had to pay for my licensing fee, which should be ridiculously expensive as well, because each province is different, but in Nova Scotia, basically their renewal date is the beginning of the November. So when I get licensed, it was a couple months back before, like before the summer. So I had to pay for about 3 months of the licensing fee, which should be about $300. And then close to mid-October, I had to pay another $600 for the renewal for a year. So which means it's like $1,000 right there, even before I get paid from my new job per se. So, you know, just kind of don't give up. I mean, there is always a way. I really thought that I was never going to be able to get through this. I mean, financially, emotionally, and, you know, physically, and but I ended up did it. So just to be persistent, and I guess, you know, in a way that you have to be, I guess, flexible too. But just, you know, I guess, you know, we as our military spouses are very resilient per se. So we, you know, we could definitely be able to navigate through, you know, if you try to look for the way. So I would say that just kind of continue on what you've been dream of, or, you know, trying to kind of pursue in a way that you wanted to do in your career.
And thanks, Renee. We see that there's another spouse in the comments that's saying, you know, it isn't always easy to get a job as a nurse, and that they're thankful for your encouragement here, because you just need to keep persevering, and something will happen, and you will land that job, hopefully. So thanks for the encouragement for this military spouse as well. We have a question here from the audience, and so for those that have had this as part of their career strategy, and I think Lana and Megan, you both had it. The question is about volunteering. So seeing that that's been an important role, how did you guys manage to do that on one income? Because sometimes when you're volunteering, you know, you're not getting paid. Maybe you were working a little bit beside on the same time, but how did you guys manage volunteering financially? Whoever is able to answer can give that one a shot.
Well, for me, it was not possible. We needed to have that second income, and so I worked on the side at something that I knew I was skilled at, and it was frustrating. So it kind of was one of those situations where, although I enjoyed the company, I enjoyed the people that I worked with, and everything like that. Of course, I felt very underemployed, which happens a lot in our community, I think. So it was just a matter of recognizing that that was not my forever step, that I had goals that I was working towards, that I was volunteering specifically with organizations that I wanted to work at, and that I was strategic in my volunteer choices as well. I volunteered at places that made me feel good and was like, oh my gosh, if I could actually get paid to do this, how amazing would that be? And I kind of kept with that on the side. So I volunteered for about a year before a job kind of fortunately opened up for me. But our family definitely required that second income with two small kids at home and daycare fees and everything else. So like I said, I just kind of worked at something that recognizing that it wasn't my forever stop.
And for us, each time that we moved to a different spot, we just designed our lifestyle so that we were relying on the one income. So we knew that anything that I was going to make was over and above what we had planned for. So when you move, you kind of have the choice as to, are you going to live on base? Are you going to live off base? Are you going to buy a house? How much is that house going to cost? How many vehicles are you going to have? What is your commute? Are you staying home to raise your children? Those are all choices that you can make. And we were always able to make it work on the one income depending on what we needed to do. So for me, it was never a huge rush. I knew that it was always going to come and that I was always going to find a job that was going to fit in the end.
Another question here for whoever it applies to. So as a military spouse, I've run into communities that are very close-minded to hiring military spouses, and we've heard this. Has anyone ever dealt with this? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead first.
Oh, mine isn't really from personal. It's kind of from my previous position in Kingston, was working with employment and military spouses and kind of reaching out to companies and things like that. And yes, it absolutely happens that communities and employers can be closed-minded. But I think education is a huge part. And I think that we're starting to see a turn now, at least I was, starting to see a turn of kind of civilian companies maybe going, oh, right, like it's worth it to have these skills here. Postings are sometimes slowed down. The average tenure of a civilian employee at a position now, based on recent data collection, is like 4.6 years. So that's the average length of a posting anyway. So I find it's just advocating for yourself and kind of doing that education. Use your MFRC. If they have employment resources available, then their employment person or their team of employment people are doing that advocation and that education on your behalf. So they probably have a nice little network of employers that they've spoken with that are not adversive to military spousal hiring and are actually pretty excited to get all of the skills and the amazing transferable skills that we get just from living our lives. They're actually pretty excited to recruit that on their team. So I would start there and kind of get that team of advocates of people working on your behalf. Let your MFRC know what kind of jobs you want to work at, or maybe if some positions that you've specifically come up across that are adversive or have said something that is just wrong, and then maybe they'll be able to kind of advocate for you on your behalf. That's kind of where I would go with that.
And Renee, what were you gonna add something?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm glad that you said that. I mean, whomever asked that question, because there is a common, I don't know, like, should I say like common rumors or stereotypes saying like, as being a military spouse, trying to navigate and finding a job, like we are penalized a lot because knowing the fact that, we're going to leave at some point, the employer doesn't want to hire you because what is the point of training you and, kind of let you go and at some point. To be honest, I don't really have a right answer to it because I don't actively like say out loud saying, I'm a military spouse and I'm supposed to be here for how many years of, in certain place. Even then, like, you never know really up until like you actually get the posting message in your hand, you will never get to know. And even if you're told that you're going to be here for a number of years, that's, might not going to be happening too. You might end up leaving too soon or, too late or much later. So in a way that actually there's one experience with me actually back in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I was about to take my mat leave, maternal leave, because, you know, with my oldest son. In each province, again, different. And especially in Manitoba, if you're on the mat leave, obviously you're going to be, however, the number of the month you are going for the mat leave, you are entitled for EI, obviously. I mean, if you're a full-time or you have worked over 6 months, I believe, about full-time hours, then you are entitled to for the EI. And also they're gonna offer you top-ups, so which means that your employee gonna actually pay you for about to make it up to 96%, 97% of your salary, basically. The issue that I had with was when you sign up for your top-up, and which they were gonna pay me top-up up to 6 months, I believe. I had to sign the contract and say that I am coming back to this particular hospital with the particular position to work at least 3 months. And at that point, because I couldn't find the daycare, even though I've been on the wait list for a number of the daycares for over 2 years, I wasn't able to get a single phone call at the time. So I had to switch from full-time to part-time just until I find the daycare or some sort of. To switch back to the full-time. So which means if I would have been signed up for that, then I would have to probably work up to 6 months after post basically mat leave, which means I wasn't sure. Again, nothing can be guaranteed, and we could leave anytime, anywhere, at any moment. So I just couldn't. So I had to go talk to my employee and say, like, explain to the manager saying that I cannot sign off this paper on my top up because I just simply cannot, guarantee that I would be able to come and work for a certain period of time. And the manager was kind of confused because they've never had any encounter with anyone who would refuse the top up, which is a free money, and they would give you pretty much close to what you've been earning so far without working. So why would you say no? She was really confused and she didn't quite understand. And I was almost afraid that I was kind of giving her misconception, saying like, I don't want to work in this place, So I had to kind of correct her, saying like, as much as I really wanted to come back and I've been really enjoying working with you in this unit, however, just, the military, being a military family, there is uncertainty everywhere. And so by signing on contract saying I'm going to coming back for top up, it's never been guaranteed. And there is any time at any moment we could get moved to different places, which means I have to pay all the money back if I don't meet their requirement, basically. So for that reason, I said I wouldn't be able to sign the top up. And guess what? I actually ended up moving probably about 4 months after I came back from that leave. So that's exactly happened. And I knew it was coming. So yeah, indeed, like we had a lot of, we being as a military spouse being kind of penalized by that. Again, for the same reason, being a military, and there's huge uncertainty everywhere. But in a way that it's kind of, I feel really challenged to, in a way that kind of, actively saying, I am a military spouse and, and my been journey, like working, in a way. So what I ended up doing is, instead of highlighting highlighting the fact that I'm a military spouse, I kind of more highlighted about my the employment history. So I had the experiences in this unit for how many years, and I've been working in this unit and how many years. And so I was a little bit more focusing on the my skills and my experiences rather than trying to kind of flash it back saying like I'm a military spouse, because I guess in my mind, I am kind of afraid, in a fact that I kind of give them an idea that I'm going to leave at any time soon as well. So, like I said, I don't really have a right answer for it, but as far as my experience goes, that's what I've been doing. And that's how I kind of faced with the challenge because of that reason. So I just wanted to say that to you guys about that.
That was probably a positive thing to do, is to address it with your employer up front at that point. We do see that people and various spouses, Rennie, like you mentioned, do not want to mention that they're a military spouse, and we completely understand. We don't necessarily, I think you judge it on a case-by-case basis, to be completely honest. Definitely never wanting to lie about anything, but judging, how what you're saying in your resume and cover letter. One thing we do encourage is with our network employers, so the employers that are participating in the Military Spousal Employment Network, the one thing that we're working so hard with them is to not have any bias towards military spouses. And so we're giving them accurate information about postings. They know that not all military spouses relocate. They do know the average, like Megan had mentioned, the average tenure of a regular employee is usually shorter than the average military spouse the average military posting. So we're continually giving them this information, trying to educate hiring managers across the country with these employers. Again, not perfect, but we're getting there, and so are your MFRCs. So to that end, we do encourage you with network employers to self-disclose that you're a military spouse. They'll provide you all with different ways to do that. When you look at the military spouse contact information, sometimes it's when you're applying, sometimes it's in your cover letter. So just take note of that. Obviously, still your choice of how or if you want to self-disclose, but these employers that we're working with, we are trying to turn it around so that it is a positive thing and that they know how the resiliency and all these transferable skills that you're developing as a military spouse, and they want to hire you. So last question, because we do, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add though, that I don't know if I sound like kind of negative about, saying a military spouse, but only negative impact. I don't know. I mean, it's not really directly from, I guess, being a military spouse, but because of how the rule or the legislation in Manitoba as a nurse, I guess that's about the mat leave and top up. That's the only thing that I got kind of negatively impacted on my own term. But otherwise, I mean, there's no way like you could kind of hide it yourself that you're a military spouse, because how are you going to be able to explain that you've been moving to, province to province or even outside of country? You have to be obviously honest with yourself and, what kind of brought you to this such a kind of a lot of moving journey and different journey. And most of the time that when I was like speaking, during the interview, especially that, I can sense that they have a really big positiveness of the military spouses. And at some point, like I remember some people saying like, oh, I don't know how you do it, like as a military spouse, such a kudo to you. Like it's such a big, a lot of challenges that you kind of been through. So, many times it's been positive, but, I guess it's just, that what you may call it, old, wives' tales, or, I guess it's just in my mind that I was like, oh, is that okay? Just officially say it out loud. I guess that's the biggest fear I had. So I'm glad that you said that, it's okay to say out loud, because I wasn't quite sure. But I mean, like I said, I've never really, try to hide it, but like I had to, properly state it that because the reason why that I had a lot of moves and I had a lot of experiences and so forth. But and at the same time, it kind of give you a great opportunity of having a great the employment experiences all over the places. And so I think that would be our biggest kind of the positiveness of being a military spouse is like none of the other people who could have such an different variety of experiences, I guess, in all over the countries or all over the provinces. So in a way that it really helped me to in terms of being a military spouse for that. I just wanted to correct it because I didn't want it to sound as if it's negative, which is not true.
We completely understand where you're coming from. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rennie. We do have some other questions, but unfortunately we can't get to them right now because we do like to end on time. But thank you so much, Rennie, Lena, and Megan. You guys have done a fantastic job navigating your careers and just super encouraging for us as people who we're dedicating our careers to supporting military spouses. So we're encouraged to hear from you. But I know the other spouses on the call or on this session have been super excited and super encouraged by you. And so we are going to transition away from this session right now. But before we do, just take a look at the screen. These are programs that are available to you nationally on a virtual basis. So we have Work It Out with MFS sessions. Those happen every month. And they're career training sessions that happen with professionals, much like this type of webinar. platform. If you were on our last session with Mark, he will be running 3 more in the new year. So take a look at that link and register for those sessions. We have a virtual career counseling program that we run where you can connect with 5 free sessions with a professional career counselor. So you can apply for that program. Our next group will happen in the new year. And also, like Lena had explained, cafconnections.ca/HERCS, we have an online entrepreneurship training program. And lots of employment resources available at that other link. So please check that out. Like Vanessa is mentioning, up next we have a live career fair with our Military Spousal Employment Network employers. They are there to chat with you. You should have received an email explaining how to go about this next portion of the virtual career networking fair. And so what you will do, you'll exit this platform, Zoom, and then you'll go right into the employer hall. Thank you. You'll go right into the employer hall and you'll be able to start clicking on some of those booths and connecting with the employers that you're interested in talking with. And so, yeah, it could even just be a great opportunity to gain information, even if you're not ready to apply for jobs right now. It could be a great opportunity to learn more about other organizations. So that's coming up. It's till 4 o'clock. Again, you can hop in and out of that. This recording will be sent around to you in the next few days. And again, thank you so much to all of our panelists. Sincerely from Military Family Services, we're extremely appreciative. We know that you had to give up time during your work days to do this. So thank you very much. That ends our session right now. We hope to see you all on the Military Spousal Employment Network platform, talking and chatting with employers and applying for jobs. So thank you so much and have a fantastic rest of your afternoon, everyone.